So, why am I outside today? Well, basically all my videos recently have been me sitting behind a microphone in some random room and I'm just talking and that's it. And I kind of wanted to switch it up, keep it a little fresh, go outside, keep it active. So yes, let's talk about everything I saw in, what month is it?
June.
No, what was last month?
May.
Oh, okay, yeah. All right, let's talk about everything I saw in May. I started the month off with Thor, directed by Kenneth Branagh. I do not like this movie that much. It's one of the first Marvel films, came from Phase 1. And I feel like its sole existence is so you just recognize who the blonde guy is in the Avengers, and that's about it. The movie doesn't really establish anything that I feel like is important later in this series, in this franchise. I feel like it's mostly bland and forgettable. A lot of it takes place in the desert for some weird reason. This is not one of my favorites, and I'll be talking about it in my Marvel ranked video that should come out at some point, because I've already done like 2 of those videos and they're both very outdated, so time to re-rank, I guess. I followed that up with Joseph, King of Dreams, made by the people who did The Prince of Egypt, which is a masterpiece. I love that movie. It has some of the best animation I've ever seen. It's got a lot of things I love about the medium of animation. Joseph is like completely different, and I think a lot of that is due to the fact that Joseph is not a very interesting character, at least the way they portray him in this film. I don't think he's the most uninteresting person in, like, you know, the Bible. In this version, I think a lot of it is him just being very whiny the entire time, but he doesn't go through any kind of arc. At the beginning, he's privileged and gets everything he wants, and at the end, he's privileged and gets everything he wants. There's not much of a change or likability to him, so I don't really care much about his journey. I loved this movie as a kid. I don't love it anymore. I think the animation does not hold up very well. I think a lot of it is just kind of rushed and doesn't really feel earned or fleshed out properly. So yeah, I don't like this movie that much. Then I watched this movie Real Steel. Well, I didn't really watch, I partly watched it. My sister had it on and I was doing something like on the computer while she was watching it, so a lot of it was just me like glimpsing over, and basically what I got from it was it wasn't really my thing. I thought it was kind of dumb. Hugh Jackman was giving a genuinely great performance, and it was weird seeing him try so hard for this random kids movie. So I mean, that's cool. For May 4th, I watched The Empire Strikes Back, you know, the classic Star Wars movie. Maybe you've heard of it. I absolutely love this one. It's a masterpiece in my book. It's one of my all-time favorites. I don't have anything else to say about it. It's The Empire Strikes Back. Then I saw Step Brothers, directed by Adam McKay. I am not a fan of Adam McKay's comedy. I think a lot of his comedy is kind of pandering. A lot of the way his movies are written are in a way that feels very childish and immature, and explains the joke to the audience. And that's the thing that really bothers me. I don't like it when you have to get a joke explained to you by a bunch of actors. Really annoying, and I don't like that approach at all. But with Step Brothers, for some reason it works, because this is my favorite Adam McKay movie. I don't like the first 2 Anchorman movies because they do this exact thing that Step Brothers does, but I think it may just be, I guess, John C. Reilly who helps deliver, because I'm not a big Will Ferrell fan, if you may know. But John C. Reilly is cool, and I think he's really what helps carry this film all the way till the end. I absolutely love his performance in here. I think their chemistry works as well. I think this is my favorite Will Ferrell comedic performance, to be honest. Honestly, I like this one more than most people. It's really stupid, and it's got a lot of issues, and some of the jokes don't land. A lot of jokes don't land, actually, but it's still a movie that I enjoy from time to time, so that's fine. Then I saw a B movie. This is one that I totally forgot how wild and insane it is. It's one of those that you watch as a kid and you're like, this is fine, whatever, but then you grow up and then you realize it's just so bonkers and doesn't make that much sense. Plot just goes from this point to this point to this point and just randomly changes genres in a lot of random moments. It's a movie that I think is really funny. The jokes land for me. I think it's genuinely great in a lot of areas. The animation holds up. Jerry Seinfeld is great. I think it's just a good movie. My issues with it mostly lie in like the last 30 minutes or so where it kind of takes its absurd concept a little too seriously, to the point where I just don't think it's that funny anymore. But for the most part, this is a movie that lands with me, and I think gets a little too much hate. I think it's one of those that will just be a guilty pleasure for a very long time. Then I saw 500 Days of Summer, directed by Mark Webb. I was not a fan. I don't think it's a terrible movie by any means. This is one that I still had a lot of fun with throughout, but I never really felt invested in this relationship, and I think a lot of that is due to Zéa Deschanel's, I think that's how you say her name's character. She is just kind of insufferable in a lot of ways, because on one hand, you got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who does a fantastic job, whose character is so endearing and you love him, but he just keeps trying to go with this one girl who just doesn't show any emotion. And I know that's kind of the point. I love how they touch on relationships like this, where it's kind of one-sided and kind of disconnected. But by doing that, it kind of left me feeling a little disconnected from the relationship as well. So a lot of it felt kind of one note and didn't really fully immerse me into this relationship, into the dialogue. I still think Webb's direction alone is very, very creative, and I think he did a terrific job with this. There are a lot of scenes that are just very inventive, what he does with the camera and the sound and the editing. I love the scenes that's the expectations versus reality thing, because I don't feel like it's touched a lot in film, and I love the way they use this mainstream template, this format, to be able to tell this story that is so universal, but isn't really explored in mainstream media, because everything has to be crystal clear and perfect when we're using this mainstream template to tell these kind of stories. I just think sometimes it overindulges itself in this idea of, like, this isn't your classic love story, and then it has to remind you a million times that it's not a classic love story. And I don't really appreciate that aspect of it. For the most part, this is one that I did enjoy, but it's not one I would revisit very much. I was kind of disappointed in a lot of ways, but it's still a good, solid movie. Then I saw There Will Be Blood, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. This is my second PTA movie, and to be honest, I was not disappointed. With the first one, I didn't like it very much. That movie was The Master, and I think a lot of that is due to the viewing experience, why I don't like that film very much. But a lot of it is also that how I came out of it feeling kind of emotionally drained, but not in a way that was like I felt emotions while watching it. A lot of it was just I had no emotion coming out of it. I felt so just dead after it was over. And I don't know if that was the point, but for There Will Be Blood, this one did not disappoint. I thought it was an extremely visually arresting piece of filmmaking. The camera work is fantastic, and the way it immerses you into this environment is insane. I cannot believe they were able to pull off what they did with this film. They made the most boring location in the world one of the most interesting locations I've ever seen in a film. I didn't know much about it going in, except that Daniel Day-Lewis played a dude named Daniel Plainview, who was an oil man. And I also know that final scene, the I drink your milkshake.
I drink it up!
As for my problems with the film, I think a lot of the stuff with Daniel's fake brother, I didn't find very interesting. I thought that stuff was, I wouldn't say bad at all or boring. It was just, it kind of felt like a lot of the tension in the film was kind of put at a halt for this storyline that didn't really accomplish anything. Everything with Daniel and his son, I thought was incredibly well done. That whole scene where he's talking to him at his desk is just so incredible to sit through. It was such an emotionally devastating scene that I will never soon forget. Paul Thomas Anderson did a fantastic job with this movie. I was not expecting that much from it. I mean, I knew a lot about it, but it kind of didn't look like my thing. I thought it looked kind of boring, to be honest. It really lived up to the hype. Well, we threw our dog in the water here once. It's kind of funny. Yeah, she just was threw her in. She lived though, so she's all good, but I don't know, it was kind of funny. Then I rewatched Parasite. I showed this one to my family, actually, my siblings, and I still love this movie. It still blows me away to this day, but the fun part was seeing, I guess, their reaction. My sister doesn't really like black and white films or foreign films or anything like that. She's very mainstream. She likes mainstream media, which is okay, that's fine, whatever. She heard about this movie and I was like, oh, yeah, I'll show it to you, I've seen it. And she was like, I hear it's really good. and she didn't know that it was all in Korean and all subtitled. And she was like, I don't think I'm gonna be into this when it started. And then like 15 minutes in, we were all watching it, having a good time, going along with the emotions and feeling the pain, feeling the sadness, feeling the laughter. I think the fact that we watched, a foreign movie together as a family, which we've never done before, and all enjoyed it, is a good sign. I saw Star Trek Beyond. I've seen this movie quite a number of times, and I actually like it more than most people do. I think a lot of it is pretty stale, to be honest. It doesn't have that J.J. Abrams feel, that flavor, that energy. A lot of it feels kind of dead in a lot of ways, but I at least still have fun with it, and I think that's a good thing. This is one that I still rewatch from time to time. It's harmless. It's not really one I want to point out flaws with or nitpick too much, complain about, because I don't have much to complain about. It's harmless, it's fine, it's a good movie. Then I saw Almost Famous, directed by Cameron Crowe, and I kind of loved it. This is one that I did not expect to like at all. I mean, it did not seem like it was up my alley. I thought it looked kind of dumb, to be honest. It did not look like it was made for me. But when I sat down and watched it, I was just so invested in these characters and their lives, and I just found them very interesting to watch. I think the weirdest part of this was the fact that I just felt like I've met all of these characters before. There was just something so lively and familiar about them, but like in a good way. Every character was kind of over the top, but they still somehow felt grounded, which was kind of weird. I just think Cameron Crowe knows how to make a good feel-good movie. He just has fun with it, and the entire time I was just having fun with myself. I just really enjoyed it from beginning to end, and that ending, man, it really made me smile. It's the shot from Spirited Away, that one part. Then I saw Little Miss Sunshine. This is one I've actually wanted to watch for a very long time. I actually put this on my list that I made back in March 2020 when quarantine was starting. I put this on my watch list a long time ago, and I finally got to sit down and watch it. I really enjoyed it. This is a small indie movie, just like, it's the classic road trip movie, but it's got a little twist in it. It's not really made for kids. It's one that just features a lot of adults going through very adult problems, and a lot of the characters are just sad, and I kind of like that. I love how sad some of this is, just people being people. They're flawed individuals. And I love that sad ingredient they add to it to really make it more interesting, I think. Steve Carell is my favorite part of the movie, I think. He gives my favorite performance in the film, and I think it's his best performance he's ever given. He's just so damaged as a person, and I loved seeing that. I think the message with like all of, being an innocent kid and the adults going through adult problems, mixing those two together and seeing her change these adults' lives for the better, really heartwarming and not really in a manipulative way. I really like the way it was done in here. I guess my issues mostly come from just the angry tone kind of spread throughout the beginning. Just how there was a lot of hatred between these characters, which is fine to some extent, but there are some times where I feel like they just went a little too far, where it just felt unwanted, and I didn't really appreciate that aspect. But for the most part, this one I really liked. I love the way it was shot. I love its sense of humor. I love every performance. I think everyone is doing a terrific job. Paul Dano screaming was just something else. Then I saw Paths of Glory, directed by Stanley Kubrick. This is, I think, my third and a half Kubrick film, because I've seen the first half of Full Metal Jacket, and I loved this movie. I think this is one of his best from what I've seen from him. And I think a lot of that is due to what it tackles, and oh, that's a spider web. I think a lot of it is how it tackles the psychological aspect of war and not really the violence aspect. I feel like a lot of war movies just kind of pull the thing where it just shows a lot of graphic violence and stuff like that in order to showcase that war is bad, which in some ways works, like Saving Private Ryan or something like that. But I think the fact they don't show anything works because it's really covering how scary it is to be in a war, just mentally. And I love the way they explore it. I think the scene I love the most is the execution scene, which if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. That scene is incredibly dark and well done, but it doesn't show you things. It's the psychological aspect. When you really think about it, it's scary. And I think Kubrick does a really good job at that. He doesn't show things, he just kind of makes you visualize things differently. Kirk Douglas as well blew me away. I love this performance. Everyone, for that matter, didn't feel like it came from the 50s. It was black and white. You know, it looked old, but it didn't feel old, if that makes sense. All of the actors felt like this was modern day. The way they were talking, the rhythm of everything just felt modern. It just felt normal. And it's just so weird. So I absolutely love this one. It's one of the best war films I have ever seen. And not because how much blood is in it, because there's like not any. It's because of how they explore the human brain. I think it's a really cool thing. I'm actually pretty sure this is where the Blair Witch Project was filmed. I live by where they shot this movie, so this may be it. I'm not actually entirely sure, but if it is, I'm scared for my life. Then I saw Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. If y'all didn't know this is one of my favorite movies. I've loved this movie for so many years. I've rewatched it many times, and I don't know, I think a lot of it is, I saw this, I believe, in 7th grade for the first time. And I was not used to weird, experimental, crazy, wild movies that don't make a lot of sense in the moment, but really do make sense when you really unpack it and analyze it. Did not expect what I was getting. It was totally out of this world, and I absolutely loved that. It felt like it was capturing what it's like to have a dream. A lot of it just captures what it's like to be human, and it's very emotional in that way, very personal. And that's what I love about Charlie Kaufman's writing. His movies just feel like they capture the human spirit in few ways that any films really can. I think Jim Carrey gives easily his best performance he's ever given. This does not feel like Jim Carrey at all. This just feels like a normal guy. The filmmaking is incredible. It looks amazing. It sounds amazing. The writing is just so intricate and detailed. I just love everything about this. This is like my comfort food. This is a very personal movie to me in a lot of different ways. And a lot of you may think that this isn't something I would like call this one of my favorites, but it's one of my favorites. I absolutely adore this film. Then I saw Isle of Dogs, directed by Wes Anderson. I love Fantastic Mr. Fox. Not one of my favorites, but I still really love it. I think it's a very, very solid film. And seeing him return to stop motion was really cool. Really enjoyed myself with this one. I thought a lot of the characters they introduce weren't really fully developed, except for the Bryan Cranston character, but a lot of it felt very not fleshed out, like they introduce characters and they don't really do much with them, and I wish they gave a little more time with certain people. For the most part, this is one that really came to life through the brilliant animation. It felt a lot more, I guess, subtle and less funny than Fantastic Mr. Fox. Like, it was having a lot more of a good time. This one felt, I guess, more serious, a little more deadpan. I thought the animation was nice and cool and stuff. I don't know. This isn't one of my favorites. I thought it was good. I thought it was solid. I think it did everything it needed to do. And yeah. Then I rewatched I think this is crap. I don't think this is what you think it is. It smells really bad. Okay, I'm freaking out here. Then I saw Lupin the Third, The Castle of Cagliostro, and it was a blast. I really enjoyed this movie. Hayao Miyazaki directed it. I'm pretty sure this was his first film. And as you know, I love Hayao Miyazaki. I've been getting more into his films quite recently. And this one feels so not like him in so many ways, because a lot of what Miyazaki does is he breaks away from that mainstream template. He doesn't like to tell stories that are basic and generic. He likes to be innovative and do something different with every film that he does. But with Cagliostro, that's not really the case. I really enjoy it. I think it's really funny and cute. And for coming out in the 70s, the animation looks amazing. I love how cartoony it is, because it just fully embraces the fact that it's a cartoon, a silly, dumb little cartoon, and it totally goes all out with it. There are hints of Miyazaki's flavor, that whole, you know, breaking the elements, jumping off of things, like that's there a couple of times. But for the most part, this is pretty straightforward and generic. And I don't think it would work if the characters weren't so lively and likable. And the characters in this are so fun to watch. They're so hilarious. Honestly, this one wasn't exactly made for kids, wasn't exactly made for adults. This is one that, just for me, at where I'm at in my life, I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a ton of fun from beginning to end. I saw Fantastic Four, the 2005 one. I believe that's the year it came out. I don't like this movie very much. I liked it as a kid, but I guess my issue with it is I don't really appreciate how seriously it takes itself sometimes, because I love when comic book movies just fully embrace how silly and dumb it is. I love the Raimi films for that. But Fantastic Four doesn't entirely do that for me. It's not as bad as the Fan Four Stick movie from 2015, because that movie's garbage. It's not as boring as that one, but it's definitely more stupid in a lot of ways. A lot of people hate it because it's goofy, and I don't hate it because it's goofy. I hate it because the characters and the actors don't have chemistry. The only one who seems to be trying is Chris Evans. Everyone in this just feels kind of stale, like they're not really giving it their all. A silly, dumb comic book movie, but there's not that charm that makes goofy, dumb comic book movies fun. Then I saw A Quiet Place Part 2, directed by John Krasinski. I have a review up on this for my channel. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good, solid film, but as a sequel, I don't think it's very good. It doesn't really accomplish anything. What all great sequels do is they take the world already established and then they build upon it. They expand it. This movie doesn't really do that. It acts like it is, and it builds up to something, and then it just ends, and then you're like, oh, okay. There's not really an emotional arc here. Characters don't get development. And while the movie itself is entertaining in and of itself, as a sequel, I don't think it accomplishes anything. The main thing that's solved at the end of the first one is used throughout the entire movie, and they don't discover anything new. For me, I don't think I can rewatch it as much because of how it ends and how it all wraps up. While I still enjoyed it in the moment and thought that opening scene was terrific, again, as a sequel, it didn't entirely work. Then I saw Hunt for the Wilderpeople, directed by Taika Waititi. I think this is my favorite Taika Waititi movie, actually. I talked about this back in, I believe, October, and I thought it was really good. Then I saw Alien, directed by Ridley Scott. This is a classic for a reason, and I heard a lot of things about it. I had a lot of high hopes. I knew that it was gonna be a little slow and intense, and that's exactly what I got. I really enjoyed this movie. I think the best aspect of it actually is this environment that you're in. It feels very lived in. It feels like there are people who slept inside of the ship. It didn't feel clean cut. It didn't feel like this perfect movie set, and I love that aspect of it. It really helped for that immersion aspect. I think Sigourney Weaver is fantastic in the movie. I think everyone does a really good job, despite the characters not being the most memorable. I think every actor did a good enough job to be able to sell these roles. And from a filmmaking level, I honestly think this is a perfect movie. The intensity, the drama, every performance I think is just crystal clear, very intense. The movie is a lot of fun and it's suspenseful. And I think that's what makes it work so well. This is iconic for a reason, and I'm so glad I was able to see it. This is one that I want to rewatch, but I also want to see the sequel. I hear the sequel is great, so I'm excited to see it. Then I rewatched Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. I've seen this movie about 1 million times, and I'm pretty sure that I've memorized the entire thing. Everything about it is like perfect. Then I saw It's Such a Beautiful Day, directed by Don Hertzfeldt. I started this fairly late at night when I first saw it. Was not prepared for it, to say the least. It was so much to take in. It was an experience like none other, but I didn't really know how to feel about it. I wasn't really enjoying myself because, again, I was kind of half asleep and my brain wasn't entirely on. I just wanted to throw something on because it was like an hour, so I was like, oh, okay, I can, fit it in, one last thing before I go to bed. It was not a good idea to start it that late because it required a lot of brain space. Once I was awake and I sat through it, I can gladly say that this is a masterpiece and one of the best animated films I have ever seen. It's so weird how I went from not enjoying it to thinking this is one of the best things ever. But a lot of it is just due to how human it is. It's such a brilliant exploration of how chaotic the mind can get sometimes. And just the animation style, kind of blurring those lines between what's real and what's not, those stick figures mixed with live action, is just so cool. I love the ending. The ending just explores like existentialism at its best. I've never seen a movie just so thoroughly capture what it's like to be a human being. For that reason alone, this is one of the best animated films I've ever seen. It's one of my all-time favorites now, and I'm excited to go and rewatch it. Then I finished everything off with The Trial of the Chicago 7. I really like this one. I showed this one to my family because my siblings were in town and they had not seen it before, and I think they would enjoy it. Ooh, I really like this one. Honestly, the fact that I gave this the same score as Blade Runner 2049 may anger some people. This is one that I simply enjoy. I don't think it's some masterpiece or that deep or anything. It's just a fun film. It's just having a good time with this concept. Aaron Sorkin is a director I'd like to see more behind the camera, experiment a little more, especially with color, because this movie looks hideous. So I'm excited to see him grow as a filmmaker, and obviously as a screenwriter, he's great. And he did a fantastic job with writing this movie and bringing everything to life. It's just such a likable experience with likable characters played by likable actors, and I just had a lot of fun with it. I don't know what else to say. It's a really good movie. I don't think it was deserving to get nominated for Best Picture, but whatever. It's a really good film. So that is everything I saw in the month of what's it called? May. This is May. Yes, May, thank you. People have been asking me, like, what am I gonna do when this quarantine is over? Because quarantine's different for a lot of people, and a lot of people are going back to normal life, which I'm personally not very excited for. But I think when the pandemic is over, either I'm gonna stop doing this series because I'm gonna be too busy, or I'm just gonna keep doing it and just rename the series. Because I'm gonna be, you know, like busy with school and stuff like that. But on the other hand, I'm gonna be watching a lot less movies, so it's gonna take a lot less time to edit and record and all that stuff. So it honestly could work out, and I could still do this series just fine. I really appreciate you guys watching these videos, like actually seeing my name on something and being like, I'm gonna watch this because I want to. You guys genuinely want to watch these. At least that's what I think. For those that do, I thank you so much. I'm so grateful that people are just reaching out and being supportive during this time. I don't think my videos are that good, and people keep telling me they are. So I guess I'm doing a good job in some way or another. These cicadas are driving me nuts. So I thank you so much. I love you guys. All of you guys are awesome. And I've had a really good time doing this series. I'm gonna just keep doing it until I guess quarantine is done for me. I also like to give a special thanks to my sister, Bailey, who recorded this video all the way through from beginning to end. It's been hard filming this. It's been really hot. We got up early this morning and it was kind of like cold, and then the heat went up and we didn't realize it. And we were all wearing sweaters, and you can see I'm sweating like a dog right now. Been a cool video to shoot. I've never really shot in the woods before for my YouTube channel. I was planning on putting a wire and plugging into a different device and just holding that, but I wasn't about to go through that work, so this is what we have. So we've had this wire dangling the entire time. Hope that didn't bother you that much. Thank you so much, as always, for watching, guys. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. This is Ethan Butler, and I'm out.